Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It seems like every time we pick a topic, we end up smack dab in the middle of a puzzle with more pieces than we know what to do with. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of those enduring mysteries that just keeps on giving Bob Lazar and Area 51.
Ah, Bob Lazar, the man, the myth, the walking question mark. Yeah, he's definitely a puzzle.
So it's 2024, and we're still talking about this guy. Why? Why does this story, which first popped up in the late 80s, still hold such a grip on us?
Well, you gotta admit, on the surface, it's the kind of story you'd hear late at night, maybe after one too many, and you just chuckle and say, yeah, right. Alien spaceships, sure.
Yeah, I mean, a guy claiming to have worked on alien spacecraft at a super-secret base near Area 51, that's some next-level conspiracy theory fodder right there.
Right. But here's the thing. This isn't just some blurry photo of a UFO or story about strange lights in the sky. Bob Lazar didn't just tell a tale. He told a tale with specifics, technical specifics.
And not just any specifics. This is a guy, remember, who built a freaking jet-powered car. A jet-powered car. Like, that was his hobby.
Yeah, the guy wasn't afraid to push the limits of engineering, that's for sure. And maybe that's part of why his story, as outlandish as it might seem, has resonated with so many people.
Okay, so let's back up a little for those who might not be as familiar with the Bob Lazar saga.
Yeah.
Set the scene for us.
All right, so picture this. It's 1989, the Cold War is still simmering, and this guy, Bob Lazar, walks onto the scene claiming he's been working at a place called S4.
S4.
Okay.
Now, for the uninitiated, this is supposedly a super-secret facility hidden away near Area 51, which was already the stuff of legend in UFO circles.
Exactly. And what was Lazar doing at S4, you ask? Well, according to him, he was reverse engineering alien spacecraft.
Reverse engineering alien spacecraft? I mean, come on. It sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster.
It does, doesn't it? But that's where things get really interesting and really weird because Lazar didn't just make a blanket statement. He went into detail. He described the craft themselves. 9 of them, he claimed, each with its own unique characteristics.
Okay, like, what? Give me some specifics. What kind of details did he provide?
Well, for starters, he said one of the craft was riddled with what looked like bullet holes, as if it had been in some kind of, altercation.
Whoa, an altercation. Like, are we talking space battles now?
Who knows? But it gets weirder. He described another craft as being ancient, like really, really old, suggesting a level of technology that would make our most advanced inventions look like Stone Age tools.
Okay, see, this is where I start to get tripped up. Ancient spacecraft. How do you even begin to wrap your head around that? And where did these craft even come from?
That's the million-dollar question, right? But Lazar didn't stop there. He even claimed that some of the craft had, get this, U.S. flags on them.
U.S. flags? What? Was America out there planting flags on alien planets like some intergalactic land grab?
It sounds crazy, right? But that's the thing with the Lazar story. Every time you think you've heard it all, there's another layer, another detail that just throws you for a loop.
And it's those details, I have to say, that make his story so hard to just dismiss out of hand. I mean, some of them are just so specific, so out there, that you have to wonder, where did he come up with this stuff?
Exactly. Like, he described the interiors of the craft as being Spartan, metallic, almost clinical in their design. And he said the seats were designed for beings much smaller than humans.
Smaller than humans. So we're talking like little green men territory here.
Hey, I'm just telling you what Lazar said.
Yeah.
But his description of the propulsion system that really gets the physics world all fired up.
Oh, yeah, the infamous Element 115. That's the stuff of science fiction, right?
It was back then, for sure. Keep in mind, this is years before Element 115, which is a super heavy element, was actually synthesized in a lab.
So is Lazar just way ahead of his time? Or did someone need to have a little chat about how this information got out?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? But Lazar's claims about Element 115 went beyond just its existence. He described how it was used to power these craft, talking about gravity manipulation and the bending of space-time.
Okay, now that is a next level stuff. Gravity manipulation. That's like bending the rules of reality as we know it.
Tell me about it. Even today, those concepts are still very much on the fringe of theoretical physics.
So here we are, faced with this incredible story, this wild ride through the world of UFOs, secret government facilities, and technologies that seem ripped from the pages of a science fiction novel. So the big question is, believable or totally bogus?
And that, my friend, is the million-dollar question that has fueled countless investigations, debates, and, let's be honest, more than a few headaches for anyone who has dared to take a serious look at the Bob Lazar story.
I mean, it's almost like someone took a perfectly normal story about, a guy working on a secret government project, and then they injected it with a dose of pure science fiction.
It's like they went a little too far, Like they couldn't just leave it at, oh, we're developing some new technology. They had to throw in the alien spacecraft and the Element 115 for good measure.
Right. It's like, why make it so outlandish? Unless, and I'm just spitballing here, unless that was the point all along.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. You're thinking, what if Bob Lazar isn't the mastermind behind this elaborate story? What if he's actually a pawn in a much bigger game?
Exactly. What if he was being played, like intentionally or unintentionally?
Yeah.
He was used to spread disinformation.
It's not outside the realm of possibility. I mean, governments have a long and, shall we say, colorful history of using disinformation to achieve their goals.
So let me get this straight. You're saying that Lazar, the guy who came forward with this explosive story about alien technology, might have actually been fed that information by someone else, someone who wanted to muddy the waters around UFOs and government involvement.
It's a scenario that has been explored by many researchers and investigators over the years. Think about it if you want to discredit legitimate UFO sightings, if you want to create confusion and doubt. What better way than to put out a story that's just believable enough to capture the public's imagination, but also so outlandish that it's ultimately easy to dismiss?
So it's like a double-edged sword. Create a story that's both intriguing and ridiculous, knowing that people will either latch onto it as proof of aliens or use it as ammunition to debunk the entire UFO phenomenon.
Exactly. It's a classic disinformation tactic, flood the zone. Overwhelm the conversation with so much information, both true and false, that it becomes nearly impossible to separate fact from fiction.
And you have to admit, it's been a pretty effective strategy. I mean, here we are, decades later, still talking about Bob Lazar. His story has become a cultural touchstone, a kind of Rorschach test for how people view the UFO phenomenon.
And let's not forget the impact Lazar's story has had on Area 51 itself. Before Lazar, it was this remote, little-known military base that most people had never even heard of.
Yeah, it was like this whispered rumor, this place where something was definitely going on, but no one knew exactly what. And then Lazar comes along with this talk of alien spacecraft and reverse engineering, and boom, suddenly Area 51 is a household name.
It went from 0 to 60 in the public consciousness practically overnight. And it's never really gone away. If anything, the fascination with Area 51 has only grown stronger in recent years.
We had the whole Storm Area 51 thing a few years back, remember? People genuinely believed they could just rush the gates and find alien spaceships thanks to Bob Lazar's story.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. But it just goes to show the power of a good story, even if it's built on a foundation of, let's just say, questionable information.
It's like Lazar tapped into this deep-seated desire we humans have to believe in something bigger than ourselves, something beyond our understanding.
And the government or whoever might be behind this supposed disinformation campaign, they understand that desire.
Yeah.
They know that if you can control the narrative, you can control the perception of reality itself.
And that's what makes the Bob Lazar story so unsettling. It's not just about UFOs or aliens. It's about the very nature of truth and how easily it can be manipulated.
It forces us to ask some uncomfortable questions about the world around us. Who do we trust? What do we believe? And how can we be sure that we're not being deceived?
It's a real head-scratcher, isn't it? Like, do we embrace the mystery? Do we just accept that we may never know the full truth about Bob Lazar and his Area 51 escapades?
Well, there's a certain allure to the unknown, isn't there? But I think the real question, the one that we keep coming back to, is whether Lazar was a willing participant in this or whether he was a pawn in a much larger game.
And that's the part that really gets me. Because if he was a willing participant, it kind of changes the whole complexion of the story.
Yeah.
But if he was used, if someone fed him this information, knowing he'd go public with it, that's a whole other level of crazy.
It's like something out of a spy thriller, right?
Yeah.
Except instead of nuclear launch codes, we're talking about alien spacecraft.
And the thing is, we may never know for sure. We're left with these breadcrumbs, these tantalizing bits of information, but no clear path to follow.
And that's the double-edged sword of information in the digital age. We have access to more information than ever before, but it's also easier than ever to manipulate that information, to create narratives that serve a particular agenda.
So how do we navigate this landscape? How do we separate fact from fiction, especially when it comes to something as inherently weird and wonderful as UFOs?
Well, I think it starts with a healthy dose of skepticism. Not cynicism, mind you, but a willingness to question everything.
Even the things that seem to make sense. The details that line up with our expectations of what a real government cover-up might look like.
Especially those things. Because often those seemingly perfect details, those little confirmations, are the most effective tools of deception. They're designed to lure you in, to make you lower your guard.
So we need to be our own detectives, our own fact-checkers, constantly evaluating the information we're taking in and asking ourselves, does this make sense? Or am I being led down a carefully constructed rabbit hole?
Exactly. And sometimes the most important question isn't, is it true? But rather, who benefits from me believing it's true?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Because often the answer to that question can reveal a lot more about the nature of the information itself than any amount of evidence or speculation.
It's all about connecting the dots, looking for patterns, and being willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it leads us down some strange and unexpected paths.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it for today. We've covered a lot of ground, explored a lot of possibilities, and probably raised more questions than we've answered. But hopefully we've given you some things to think about, some tools to use as you continue your own exploration of the Bob Lazar mystery.
And who knows, maybe someday we'll finally have those answers. Or maybe the mystery itself is part of what makes this story so enduring, so captivating. Either way, it's a story that will continue to be told, debated, and dissected for years to come.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the strange and often confounding world of UFOs, government secrets, and the enduring mystery of Bob Lazar. Until next time, keep your minds open, your skepticism sharp, and as always, keep looking up.
And so, Carl, here's the million-dollar question. Do you believe that a higher form of non-human intelligence has visited this planet?
Right. So non-human intelligence exists. Non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity. This interaction is not new, and it's been ongoing. And there are unelected people in the government that are aware of that.